Arizona State, I mean, I'd be like, hey, that's one of the better games this weekend, you know? I mean, so I don't know how those teams would be when that game is like supposed to be played.
Mike Gundy's buyout is $15 million when this season is done.
Did you see Bruce Feldman, who he said he thought that they would and should target?
I have right here that one of the names that have been circled already to be interviewed for Oklahoma State is Ben Arbuckle, 30-year-old offensive coordinator at Oklahoma.
A rocket ship to the top if he can get a job like Oklahoma State.
Is that who Feldman is saying?
That's who Feldman said. Okay. So there must be a lot of behind the scenes.
Sure, there's a night look, and Ben Arbuckle is going to be a head coach sooner than later. But is there a little something pettiness about, hey, we're going to rip the offensive coordinator away from our big rival in Oklahoma that we're not going to play anymore?
Just Brent Venables' luck if you got this thing going and then Arbuckle takes the Oak State job. But if Arbuckle has any kind of year like they've started with Mateer, he's going to be.
Yeah, and by the way, at 29, I don't think Oklahoma State's a great job of the Big 12, but that's a job you would have.
Yeah, at age 29. Like, would you, if you were, I was thinking about this when I saw the Feldman tweet before I saw Arbuckle's name.
Golish wouldn't take it.
I was like, they're going to push for Alex Golish, and I wouldn't take Oklahoma State.
Oh, no.
Alex Golish. No.
If I'm Alex Golish, I'm going to wherever I want to go, the Big Ten or the SEC.
That's right.
Whichever chance of winning at either one of those leagues.
But Arbuckle would take this.
But I'm with Lance. If I was a high school coach 5 years ago,
I'm not sure I'd want Ben Arbuckle if I was Oklahoma State.
I don't think I would either. I think you're going too quick.
I mean, very quick. Guess who's not coming with it?
John Mateer. Right.
Yeah, and how good has Ben Arbuckle without John Mateer? He was at Western Kentucky with a offensive-minded coach. He was at Washington State, and now he's at Oklahoma. And Washington State and Oklahoma, that I've known him, he's had John Mateer. So I don't know what you're getting there. I think that, I mean, maybe it'll work. I don't know. And he's only 30. Those are some of the news headlines going on. We'll get back into the games. NFL-wise, though, we get a renewal of a rivalry happening. I think this is Monday night, the second game. It is the Chargers of Los Angeles in Vegas to play the Raiders. It is also the latest chapter in Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh's rivalry. If you don't think Pete Carroll thinks it's a rivalry, we know Jim Harbaugh does. He's always talked about it. And, you know, Stanford, USC, San Francisco, Seattle. And one of the reasons he wanted to come back and coach the Chargers in that division is because he wanted a chance. When Pete took the Raiders job, he was like, hey, this is exciting. I get to play him now twice a year. Pete Carroll gets asked about it yesterday in a media availability. Pete says, quote, I remember Jim. Long pause. I have no fond memories.
And I think somebody followed up like, what is your relationship? We don't have a relationship. Like he doubled down on it.
By the way, I have followed Pete Carroll for a long, long time. I don't hear him speak negatively about people. And so I think this shows you, like, behind the scenes, I don't know what happened between Harbaugh and Pete Carroll, but that is very, very strange.
Yeah, Harbaugh talked about Pete Carroll never sending him Christmas cards. Carroll joked yesterday, he always sends me a birthday card, though, about Pete getting older.
Oh, wow.
So
hey, not a lot of times you get matchups, say, former national championship winning coaches in the NFL.
No, that's true. You're right about that. I watched the Dallas Cowboys, the one where Jimmy Johnson returns for the NFC Championship game, and he and Jerry.
Oh, how awkward was that?
I mean, and that's what I was going to say. It was one of the coldest handshakes I've ever seen.
Ever.
And
I'll tell you another one. I don't know if you guys remember watching this live, but when Bob Knight.
Never miss anything from the next round when you listen on demand through the podcast platform of your choice. Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or Google Podcasts. Wherever you listen, always like, follow, subscribe, and turn on automatic downloads so you catch every part of the next round. Listen anywhere in the world at any time on the Next Round podcast feed and support the show by following, subscribing, and turning on automatic downloads on any podcast platform. Thanks for always making the Next Round a big part of your day.
Yo, kinfolk, what's good, man? Let me holler at you for a minute. You know how life can be life. You're out there chasing that dollar. Every dollar is accounted for going somewhere. Then all of a sudden, bam! Out of nowhere, a car accident. All I had to do was hit up my people at Alexander Sonora Trial. You already know when that dude Alex pulls up the trial, he shuts down the litigation situation. Yo, go to Sonora.com. Hit him up at 659-777-7777.
Call me, Alabama.
No representation that legal services provided are better than any other provider.
The alarms are going off as we head to week 4 of the college football season. MyBookie.ag bringing you Monday Morning Live as we look back at Week 3 and sneak peek ahead to Week 4. Jim Dunaway along with ESPN's Tom Luginbill, who's with us now. We will get to the Classic at Neyland, the big win at South Bend for the SEC, and everything else going on in the league, including Boo Birds for Arch in Austin. But we'll start with Alabama and Auburn, as we always do on this show. I was in Tuscaloosa as Alabama beat a Big Ten team in Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin's going to be good, but you and I were texting during the game, dude. Ty Simpson's timing right now gets better and better each week.
Has there been a more accurate quarterback in college football for 2 weeks in a row?
No, when everybody's falling apart, I mean, there's a lot of big name guys that are shaky right now, albeit against some weak opponents for Alabama. But Simpson looks the part right now.
Well, he's really starting to come into his own. He's poised. He's composed. I've just been so impressed with the clock in his head, knowing where to go with the football, getting the ball out of his hand, using his legs when he needs to. All of the things that you want to see your quarterback do. And the thing is, and I think I texted you this, for a guy with his experience, which is minimal, it just goes to show you how much growth, maturity, and age do count for something. Yeah. Right? That's a lot of practice. That's a lot of knowledge of the game. That's a lot of understanding and maturing. And that's starting to come to fruition. I thought it was, again, a huge building block for what they want to be. The weapons are continuing to mature and to grow. And then maybe most importantly, they didn't turn the ball over.
That's right.
I mean, at the end of the day, what's the most important thing in football? It's the ball. Do we have it or do you have it?
Yeah. I like having it, especially with Alabama right now. They 454 yards of total offense. We'll get to things I'm concerned about because I'm still concerned going into the bye week about several things before they go play the Georgia Bulldogs. But you played the position and you've coached the position of quarterback. Just getting this valuable seat time and getting to be positive with all the good stuff happening for him. He wasn't horrible in Tallahassee. They didn't lose that football game because of Ty Simpson in Tallahassee. Good football team, by the way, in Florida State. So I'm asking you, what benefit do you get when you go 17 of 17 against La Monroe, when you complete 13 straight against Wisconsin at home in front of that crowd before you go play a Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann defense? You played the position. When you're connecting positive things on top of positive things, does that build into this challenge in Athens?
Well, it absolutely does, because it instills a belief and a confidence that what's being coached and how you're taking what's being coached and applying it on the practice field every day, in the meeting room, and then on game day, that it's all kind of aligning together. And listen, confidence is such a huge part of every walk of life. But at that particular position, if you are not playing with confidence, I can promise you are unsure, you are going to be tentative, and you are not going to command the huddle. Your team is not going to respond to you. So all of these positive blocks that are being stacked upon one another are a real clear and positive, I think, moment for this coaching staff to realize, hey, we can trust this guy. And for the player in Ty Simpson to know, hey, we're building this thing around the things that I do well, right? And that's what we can talk all day long about offensive systems, Jim, and this and that. The offensive system is, what do our players do well? How do we accentuate that? And then how do we come up with a way of minimizing or masking deficiencies? And that's where I think Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and the quarterback are really aligned right now.
We'll continue our conversation about Alabama's win over Wisconsin 38-14 to go 2-1 in the league, and then get to Auburn as they are now poised for an unbeaten top 25 showdown on the road at Oklahoma after taking care of South Alabama. But first, I want to remind you that our friends at mybookie.ag are there to help you with their bet back bonus, promo code next round. Whether you want to hammer the spreads and play all the great college football games during the week or play the casino games,
mybookie.ag is your place to go right now. Use our code NEXTROUND on your first bet up to $500. It's fully covered. You make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back with the bet back bonus. So no worries at all, up to $500 right there. But you'll have just so much fun playing the games, whether it's the casino games or at the sports book. Mybookie.ag, mybookie.ag. Before I get to my concerns, everyone was waiting on Ryan Williams to come back and have big plays. 5 catches, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. For those that were debating whether or not he should lose playing time or whatever, here comes Ryan Williams. He's still an elite athlete, and when he gets the football, when they were able to get the football to him, he does special things.
He is special. And I think I said to you last Monday morning, I was like, he better get on his horse, start riding. Because when you're standing on the sideline, you're watching other guys come out and make plays in your absence, and there's other guys that can fill the void. If that's not a motivator, I don't know what is. And I thought he acquitted himself very well. He got back into the lineman, and it was very clear that when that ball was coming his way, plays were going to be made. Listen, as you're growing some of these guys, like 17 we talked about last week, Brooks, you need the Ryan Williams component for opportunities to go to those guys when defenses are going to sit there and say, hey, listen, we are not going to let number 2 beat us. And so when he's on the field, it makes all the other opportunities become more clear, because now the defense is going to dictate what it is they're trying to do. If he's off the field and there's not as many known commodities, then all of a sudden you don't have to roll your defense, or you don't have to bracket a guy, and you can play it in more of a true base look. So I was really impressed. I just thought, I don't think they've run the football the way they want to.
Oh, no.
Right?
No, yeah.
And I know that's one of your concerns, but I will say this. The offensive line performance against Florida State was so notoriously bad that I do think that they have grown leaps and bounds in the offensive line in terms of consistent performance. What I'm concerned about is establishing the line of scrimmage early on the ground, not just with attempts to run the ball, but when you do run the ball, you've got to show that you can impose your will on people. That would be my takeaway from a perspective of where do they continue to have to go.
One more thought on what you're saying on Ryan Williams, and then I want to comment on that. But being at the game, and I know you get the high 22 and coaching films where you can see it, but sometimes fans, I don't think, when they are not in the stadium, when they watch on television, you're not able to see this. But when you see Jeremy Bernard wide open on some of his routes coming across the middle of the field, and you can see this at games, very, very evident. Ryan Williams is going deep on a route, and he takes defenders with him that just opens up that underneath crossing route for Bernard or someone else. And that doesn't show up on Ryan Williams' stat sheet. It only helps, though, young Ty Simpson and Jeremy Bernard's stat sheet, and that's a no-glory route for Ryan Williams that he runs with great grace and speed that helps take the top off that defense.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. When you draw attention with more than one defender, you are creating space somewhere else on the field. Now, sometimes you're doing that with intent. Other times you're not. You're actually trying to target Ryan Williams, and it's not there. So now it becomes incumbent upon the quarterback to get from 1 to 2 to 3. And sometimes it can be very enticing to lock on to Ryan Williams because you have so much confidence in what he's going to do. But if that's not what the progression dictates, you as a quarterback got to do your job. And that gets you to Jeremy Bernard. That gets you to 17. It gets you to other spots. But when you don't have that on the field, and you might just have some other guy running one-on-one, all right, now all of a sudden he doesn't have 2 defenders or 3 defenders dropping off with him. He's got 1. And so that's the value of having number 2 on the field.
Now about the running game. Is it just because I was raised in the 70s and 80s and 90s that I think you have to have a running game? Or can you, in the Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb scheme, have these short passes that sort of work as an extension of the running game? Because, I mean, Ty Simpson was 6 carries, 25 yards. He was Alabama's leading rusher in this game against Wisconsin. In my old brain says you can't beat Georgia and Athens that way, but you're an offensive guru. Can you rush the ball for less than 100 yards and win a road SEC football game in 2025?
So to take you back a little bit, I came up in the early portion of my coaching career when there was a belief that you could not run the football out of the shotgun. That you could not run the football out of the shotgun, which obviously, as we all know now, has been completely debunked, and that transformed offensive football. I think there's two ways to look at this. There is one component that is based off of ability level, toughness, physicality at the point of attack, imposing your will, and the mentality that you are just going to lean on people. Okay? That's number one. Number two is so much of offensive football has now become mathematical in terms of it being a numbers game. And you touched on the stuff on the perimeter real quickly that happens, okay? Because what you can't find yourself doing is banging your head against a wall if you're lining up and you've got 6 guys to block 7, or you've got 5 guys to block 6. You can't account for that. That's one of the reasons why you see so much quarterback run in college football right now, because it gives you the extra blocker by the running back now becoming that extra hat and the quarterback's now the ball carrier. So sometimes when you may want to run the football, or you have aligned yourself with a check that says, if the numbers are right, we're running it. If they're not, we're getting out of it. And unfortunately for fans and all of us, you just see the ball being snapped and it being thrown. You may not see what took the quarterback in the play call to that throw. So those are the two things now that I think really impact whether or not you're able to physically run the football. In my opinion, though, Alabama is too talented in the offensive line with their running game, with their running backs, to not be able to, against most people, push the line of scrimmage, right? And so whether that is an awareness or an intent early on for intentional execution in the run game to line up and just say, hey, this is what we're going to come out here and we're going to do. They may get us, okay? We may have a gain of 0. As long as we're getting positive yards, we're going to stick with it. And then maybe, boom, one breaks and you hammer one for 40 yards. That's the area that I think there could be a little more patience with Alabama, Jim, is continuing to lean on it a little bit more. Now, if the numbers dictate otherwise, I get that. But the initial early part of that, I think maybe there needs to be a little bit more of intent on Alabama's part.
I will tell you, and again, this may be one of those things that if you're just watching the game and you're not trying to break it down, maybe you don't notice it, but they continue to juggle, even in the game against Wisconsin, that offensive line around where you had Jaden Roberts working at right guard and moving Vandermark around. I think even in the course of the game, going into the bye week and then Georgia, they're still trying to find the 5 guys on that offensive line that works best for them right now. And they're still finding, is it Roberts on the right side? Is it on the left side? Is Formby the tackle they want to go into SEC play with or not? And then I listen, you are who you are in life, but is there a chance that Caden Proctor can be too big? Like, he's a massive human being, and I know it's very sexy to have a 360-pound left tackle out there. You got to run around him. But as a guy who, as scout, you look at stuff through the eyes of scouts. Can you be too big? Is his footwork, is his speed still the same, playing at this massive size that he's one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen in person?
Yeah. And he's smaller than Evan Neal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's what's crazy about it. Listen, I think so much of Caden Proctor is about footwork and whether or not he can maintain a pad level with knee bend versus waist bend. And you talk to offensive line coaches and you talk to defensive line coaches, and if they can get the offensive lineman to bend at the waist, they know he's done. And I think the combination of pad level with Caden Proctor and inconsistent footwork are two things that he's challenged with. He battles it on a play in and play out basis. And when he's good, he's really, really good. I don't think it's so much of can you be too big or this and that. He's got great feet. He can bend. He's athletic. I really believe with Caden Proctor, it's all about fundamentals and technique and creating consistency in that world, which has been a challenge for him.
One more Alabama thing before we jump to Auburn, and it's a look-ahead question from the chat room. It's brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. You're going to see on the screen here a great way to jump in again. The QR code's always up. If you haven't jumped in yet, do it right now. MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. You get a bet back bonus right there up to $500. Your first bet's fully covered. That happens one time there, but you'll enjoy the casino games, playing all the college and NFL games. It's fantastic during basketball season. All right there, mybookie.ag. MyBookie, where bettors win together because bragging's good, but cashing in is better. MyBookie.ag. Royal Payne wants to know, how do you, Lugs, he says, how does Lugs think the Georgia D issues versus Tennessee translates to Bama's zero scheme? So Georgia obviously gave up a lot of passing yards to Joey Aguilar. We'll talk about that game in a second. So looking at Bama and Tennessee and Bama and Georgia in 2 weeks in Athens, do you see some things that Bama's offense can cause stress on the struggling, learning as they play defensive backs of the Georgia Bulldogs?
Well, listen, I think that where Georgia's been struggling is one-on-one matchups, right? They need their defenders to make plays when contested. And listen, when you're playing against Tennessee, that's a vaunted passing attack. To me, Alabama's going to look at Georgia in the defensive secondary. But I will say this, too. The secondary is tied into the front, Jim. And if you're not regularly getting home or you're not regularly affecting the quarterback and you've got guys running all over the place, that has a direct correlation to your performance on the back end. So as we look at the secondary for Georgia, peer your eyes and peel them over to the defensive front and see if that is impacting the quarterback to help the defensive secondary. Now, I'd have to dive in deeper, but I know that plays hand in hand with it for everybody in college football. I do think that the weapons are comparable. Chris Brazell had a great game for Tennessee against Georgia. But yeah, I do think that there's opportunities in the passing game, but Alabama's going to have to protect up front.
Got to give him time. We'll do a full dive into Alabama at Georgia, both bye weeks for those two teams coming up this week. So next Monday, Monday Morning Live, jump in for the first quick look ahead on Bama and Georgia between the hedges, 2 Saturday nights. Not this Saturday night, the next Saturday night in prime time on ABC. For the third time in 4 years under Hugh Freeze, Auburn is 3-0. They beat South Alabama 31-15. I'm not overly concerned about the performance by Auburn in this one. It wasn't maybe the blowout game some Auburn fans thought it would be. And I did feel like that when they got up 21-3, Auburn did, with 9:48 to go in the second quarter, you could almost see the body language of the team change to where, all right, there's another W, and they didn't play as clean the rest of the way. That was my opinion.
I totally agree with you. It's almost like they took a breath.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, and Hugh Freeze said this post-game, he got conservative. And I kind of felt like the team went on cruise control a little bit. But I'll tell you, Jim, there's progress there. I mean, the quarterback position is so vastly improved from what it was each of the last 2 to 3, really 5 seasons of Auburn football, maybe even further back than that. But I thought Cobb has continued to play really well on the ground. They've got weapons. Jackson Arnold's combination of accuracy and the ability to know when to use his legs has been a real dynamic force for this offense. I was a little concerned in the second half, and credit Major Applewhite here. I thought that South Alabama really schemed up Auburn on defense. There's a lot of backfield action, a lot of window dressing and eye candy, and they had Auburn's defenders head spinning, and they were so focused on trying to figure out who's going where and who's going here and who's going there. And the next thing you know, the ball was out on the perimeter.
Right.
And they were in the open field. It was South Alabama's attack is very similar to Georgia Tech's attack. You get so consumed with going on tackle to tackle, and the next thing you know, boom, the ball's out. And so credit South Alabama there for having a really good scheme and utilizing it to the best of their ability. They just don't have the horses in the stable to run the race with Auburn. And then credit Auburn late in the game. When South Alabama was knocking, had the ball, I think on the 18, you have the sack and the strip for the fumble, and you basically put a nail in it. So they made the play when they needed to make the play. But consistency over the course of 4 quarters is not yet what we've seen from Auburn. And now you go on the road to Norman, and you're going to play a team that everybody's talking about right now. Right now, they are the media darling, particularly on the offensive side of the football. They're going to throw a lot at you on defense. Jackson Arnold knows exactly what's coming. So now we're going to really see if Auburn could put 4 quarters together on the road.
And I do want to talk about that, Brandon, in the chat room. Y'all should be looking at the OU boards right now and listening to their podcast. They don't think Auburn should even show up. Already starting to talk about a blowout this weekend and focusing on Texas in 2 weeks. The things you talked about scheming up that Applewhite in South Alabama was able to do, is that anything that John Mateer, the Heisman favorite, and Ben Arbuckle can take and maybe damage Auburn with, or does that actually work out pretty good for DJ Durkin, that he had a first quick look at that, and maybe that helps him in preparation for the trip to Norman?
I don't think there's any question that it helps, because yes, Oklahoma is going to do a lot of those same things. And now in this, as opposed to Bishop Davenport at South Alabama, you are going to get a heavy dose of quarterback run. And we talked about this last week. My concern with Oklahoma is, can you run it without him? Can you run it without John Mateer? Now, that being said, the reality is John Mateer is going to be the focal point of the entire Oklahoma offense, run and pass. That's what we've seen to this point. That hasn't changed yet. But you're also going to see a lot of the misdirection and the things to try to get you to take a false step, get your eyes in the wrong position. And now all of a sudden, offensively, they've got you out leveraged. And so, yeah, I would be concerned about it if I was an Auburn fan, but I also feel like it is a good tune-up. You were able to see it. They got you a few times. You get back to the tape. Why did they get us? Where were we wrong? Was it scheme? Was it our technique? Was it run fits that we coached you to do this and you did this? So there's a lot to dissect from that game film that I do think will apply directly to what's coming this weekend.
Got some dogs on that Auburn defense. I love me some Keyron Crawford. He had an interception, first of his career, 2 tackles for a loss. I love DJ Durkin as a defensive coordinator. This will be a fantastic matchup coming up Saturday afternoon there in Norman, Oklahoma, where, by the way, the Sooners opened up a 6.5-point favorite in that one. Like you said, number 11 Oklahoma, the media darling right now. 22 Auburn's just new to this party. Jeremiah Cobb at running back. Looks good, and I am just so impressed how both the transfer portal tackles and that All-American center have made that Auburn offensive line look totally different this year.
Well, listen, when you make the right choices in the transfer portal, it truly is a magic wand. Like we used to say, a guy gets a job and you can't wave a magic wand and flip it immediately. Well, now you can if you make the right choices. I think the other thing that's helping that offensive line is Cobb's got tremendous vision. And his vision is really good at exploiting the cutback lane. And he runs to daylight. He can fit through tight creases. So when he's seeing the movement in front of him and he knows where his landmark is, but all of a sudden that changes and shifts, he's able to exploit tiny creases in line. So I think it goes hand in hand. They're improved in the offensive line, but they've got a running back that can enhance the production of their offensive line.
Brandon, Maverick, and a couple of people going back and forth in the chat room. One is saying, well, Venables knows Jackson Arnold like the back of his hand. And the other guy is saying, well, Jackson Arnold knows Venables' defense like the back of his hand. Is there an advantage? You've coached it, you played it. When you know the other coaching staff and they know you, is there an advantage, disadvantage for one side or the other?
I think there may be a slight advantage that would weigh in Auburn's favor because obviously terminology. Some of that may change, obviously, this week for obvious reasons. But you also know a lot of the things that Brent Venables wants to try to do to affect you post-snap. That's where, kind of Brent Venables has gnashed his teeth as a really strong defensive coach, is showing you one thing and changing the picture after the snap. And I think those are going to be things that Jackson Arnold's going to be intimately familiar with. Now, you look at from the opposite side. Look at from Brent Venables looking at Jackson Arnold. Brent Venables didn't necessarily get to see Jackson Arnold with all of the personnel that Oklahoma is playing with now. Remember, that first 6-7 weeks of the season last year, all of those guys went down to injury. They weren't very good in the offensive line. They couldn't run the football, and all of the wideouts were hurt. So I'd be willing to bet that Brent Venables is probably saying, we didn't get to experience the best of Jackson Arnold because of our circumstances a year ago. So what he's now going to base his assessments off of are the last 3 weeks, because that's the Jackson Arnold that's playing right now. I don't think he can base his assessments off of a performance last year that was not ideal for anybody on the Oklahoma offense.
25 good minutes there on Alabama and Auburn. The rest of the country for the rest of Monday Morning Live. Tom Luginbill of ESPN, Jim Dunaway of The Next Round as we continue on. Brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code Next Round. Your chance to get in that bet back bonus with no stress on your first bet, up to $500. If you lose it, they throw that money right back in, up to $500. After that, just a lot of fun. Playing the moonshot parlays or nonstop sports book fun or casino fun, all right there at mybookie.ag, promo code Next Round. Best game in the country, maybe the best game of the year so far, Georgia and Tennessee. And I will say this right now, betting odds at mybookie.ag and others back me up here. I am more impressed with Tennessee after this loss as a national championship contender, playoff contender, than I was before the game. And they lost the game, but Joey Aguilar, Chris Brazil, everything about Tennessee looked the part. Georgia gets the win. Just a classic football game. A lot of positives to take from both sides of the football, both sides of the sidelines.
I couldn't agree more. Clearly the job that Josh Heupel has done in closing the talent gap and putting a product on the field that can be in position to win the game. Listen, they did exactly what you want to do versus a team like Georgia, right? Be in a position at the end of the game to have the ball last, line up, kick a field goal, and win it. They just missed the field goal. The bottom line, Kirby Smart stated publicly after the game they didn't feel like they deserved to win the game. They felt like they were outplayed in a lot of areas, and probably there's some legitimacy to that. I think what Joey Aguilar showed, and it wasn't easy, and it wasn't going to be easy. Right? I mean, that's the thing that we've got to acknowledge. Everybody was wondering, well, how is he going to do in this moment? I think he proved that he belongs. I think he proved that they can win a lot of football games with him, that he's going to be fine. There was a bit of a dip and a lull there around the third quarter with him where I kind of felt like he was just off the mark a little bit. But he's going to be fine. They're going to be fine. The thing that was interesting to me, and not to get away from Tennessee, because I thought they played well enough to win, and both teams probably did. They made their fair share of mistakes. Is I was really impressed with Mike Bobo and his willingness to tweak the offense to Gunnar Stockton's strengths.
Yes.
Like, when was the last time we've seen a Georgia offense line up and deliberately run their quarterback? Like that's just not been a part of their DNA. So the evolution there of saying, okay, Carson Beck is not going to do this. Well, maybe Gunnar Stockton is not going to be Carson Beck in some other regard. So let's focus on how we make our offense more dangerous by letting the defense know that we are going to be a running threat from under center or out of the shotgun from the quarterback position, potentially at all times. I thought he grew up big time.
Oh,
like that was a major step. And when you looked at Georgia against Marshall, you looked at Georgia against Austin Peay, and they're dilly-dallying around, and it was uninspired, cruise control football. That was a team that kicked it up a notch, and it wasn't easy, and it went back and forth. They're trading blows. Tell you what, man, you needed to get a note from your mother to play in that game too.
Yeah,
those pads were popping. I mean, that was a tough, physical football game.
I too walked away really impressed with Gunnar Stockton. His ability to throw off platform, if I'm using that phrase correctly, on the run and making great throws. And that pass to London Humphreys with everything on the line there, and he drops it in the bucket. I mean, that's gutsy play right there. Stockton, again, I know he won, but even if the field goal had been good and Tennessee had won the game, I would have left being more impressed with Georgia than I was going to that game, and more impressed with Gunnar Stockton than I would have been. Even if they'd lost the game, the dude impressed the heck out of me.
if you're a Georgia fan, you got to love what you saw out of that guy.
Yes.
In that environment, on the road. And I will say this, I don't know, because I felt the same way about Georgia Tech in their Clemson game. Where I thought Georgia did a really good job is never looking at the scoreboard. Just keep playing. Keep playing, keep chipping away. Let's just take one play after the next play after the next play. I never got the sense that Georgia pressed. And usually when you're on the road and you're in that type of environment, it's the quarterback that presses. But he didn't, and he didn't flinch. I think these are huge building blocks for Georgia.
I wish Alabama had played Georgia this week, to be honest with you, because the Georgia the corners, Robinson and Jones, I still don't know if they found some of those balls looking for them in the air. They seem to be in phase, but they look lost out there at times. Yeah. And I know that's something, given 2 weeks, that Kirby will correct. And that's what scares me as a Bama guy going to Athens, is that was probably a good chance to get those young DBs exposed.
Well, and that's what I said earlier about that when we were asked on the chat is, if there's a contested play there to be made, one of two things have to happen on defense. It's either a turnover or it's an incomplete pass.
Yeah.
Right. And that's got to get corrected for them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Texas A&M goes to South Bend and they win it 41-40. Tyler Buckner dropped the PAT and all of that, but it was a heck of a football game. And this Marcel Reed kid, if there were any questions about him being a quarterback, he and Texas A&M. I know Elko gets this reputation, Luke, of being a defensive guy, but that offensive scheme the Aggies took to Notre Dame, that was impressive as heck.
Yeah, listen, I said last week that I really felt like this was going to be a game that was going to be won by the quarterback. You got two good defensive teams, two good offensive lines, running backs in both rooms for both teams. And what does that mean? That means that the quarterback's going to have to come up with a way. And not that CJ Carr, played poorly necessarily. I still think he's got a chance to be a really special player. Marcel Reed is SMU's Kevin Jennings of the SEC.
Yes.
Where it ain't always going to look pretty. He's not overly big and physically imposing, but he just finds a way to get the job done. And how about being Texas A&M on the road committing 12 penalties and you win the game?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Notre Dame fans are saying, where was the 13th? That flag. They wanted to flag on that last play, tackling the guy up the middle, but there were some questionable calls both ways. Yeah, that happens. Did you see Pete Sampson's story, his tweet, where he had heard late Saturday night that CJ Carr was tipping his plays
with his stance?
Yeah, and if it was parallel, it was a run. If it was staggered, it was a pass. And Pete went back and broke down every play. 58 of the 64 plays were tipped that way. As a guy who, again, coached and played the position, is that nerves? Do you try to get that extra one step faster by getting to that staggered stance when it's a pass?
No, it's not nerves. Actually, it's intentional. It's everything's about timing, footwork, and alignment, and things of that nature. And it's a tell. Unfortunately, they're going to have to correct it and alter how they do that. You see some of this sometimes in the offensive line too, where you'll get a beat on what the center's doing. He might tuck his head for a second to look under his legs to see if when the quarterback claps, and then all of a sudden, the moment his head comes up, the defensive front can get a beat on him because the ball's getting snapped immediately, as opposed to the center looking between his legs, coming up, holding for a second, right, and then making the snap. It's little tiny tells like that coaches are constantly looking at on tape to see if it can be an advantage. And so that's something they're going to have to correct going forward.
Yeah, Notre Dame is 0-2. For A&M, bye week for them, then Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home, and Florida at home, and the Aggies are already 10th in the country. They're in a pretty good spot. Yeah. LSU wins. They're 3-0. And they just 5 interceptions from DJ Lagway to beat Florida 20-10. Blake Baker, I don't know if you saw Game Day. I had a chance to make it to Tuscaloosa early, so I'm watching the segment where Nick Saban on Game Day is sort of on the big screen pointing out Blake Baker's scheme on how he disguises and fools the quarterbacks. And And then all of a sudden, it plays out exactly that way, not once, not twice, but 5 times in that game where DJ Lagway didn't know who he was throwing it to.
Yeah, and I don't think it's ever healthy for any team, especially Florida, who doesn't want to do this, to attempt either, 47 pass attempts or 44. That's not what Florida wants to be.
Yep.
So you're putting the ball up there more often than you should, which leads to opportunities to put it in harm's way. I am perplexed at the regression of DJ Lagway, and I think a lot of it is that he's pressing. He's feeling like he's got to carry the team. He's got to do it all. They haven't effectively run the football the way that they would like to. And then it's leading to taking risks with the football. And you, against a team like LSU on the road at night, you got no shot if you're going to turn the ball over like that. I don't care if you're Florida or anybody else. And I think they committed 7 penalties. That kills you right there. He's got to get back to just making the plays that are there to be made, not trying to make everybody else's play. And because you are turning the offense into a negative play machine, and defensively you're not going to be able to overcome. I mean, the score was only 20-10, Jim.
Oh, that's
I
right.
mean, we're not talking about a contest where you said, "Wow, LSU," and you look at them in the AP poll. What are they, 3? You're not sitting there looking at them and going, "Well, they're just vastly superior to Florida athletically."
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
Now, they were vastly superior to Florida in execution, but it would be different if and I think that's the thing about Florida. If they can just clean it up. The problem is the schedule is so daunting, and the more negativity that swirls and surrounds the program, the tougher it is to not allow it to seep into your locker room. And then all of a sudden you got locker room lawyers and everybody's pointing fingers and this and that. If that stuff starts rolling downhill, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, they won it 20-10. One of those was a pick 6 for LSU. So are you worried about LSU's offense at all?
I think maybe a little bit, but I also want to give some credit to Florida defensively. I thought they were pretty darn good, and the thing is, they never folded their tent. They could have been sitting there rolling their eyes and throwing their hands up every time that ball got turned over. Instead, what did they do? They went out and they balled. They played. They gave their team a chance late. So, listen, LSU is going to be fine on offense. I just think they played a pretty good football team.
Vandy wins at South Carolina, not even close, 31-7. They have outscored their opponents in the first 3 games, including road wins at Virginia Tech and South Carolina, 120-30, the best they've done since 1912. Should we be talking more about Vandy's defense for Stephen Gregory and Clark Lee than we do Diego Pavia? Pavia has been the swagger guy, but this Vandy defense looks legit.
Well, they are, and I think it also helps when Lenore Sellers is removed from the equation. That changed the entire complexion of the approach, what they were going to have to defend, quarterback run, the improvisational plays. But I'll say this, like if you talk to coaches and say, what do I want in my football team? Well, I want physical toughness. I want mental toughness. I want error-free football. I want a team that's technically sound, fundamentally sound, understands field position, is strong in the kicking game. Like, that's Vanderbilt. Like, you sit there and you're like, how many boxes can we check in all of those different categories? To me, Vanderbilt is Georgia Tech of the SEC. They are literally, their foundational pillars are almost identical. They play the game the right way. They play it with toughness and execution and passion and heart. And then on top of it, they're well coached. Now, they may not always have the best players on the field, but if you play football that way and other people make a mistake or you have an injury like you had Lenore Sellers, you are right in the thick of it because you don't beat yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Texas wins. Arch had 10 incomplete passes in a row, and the fans were booing in Austin. But his running backs are beat up and injured. They can't get the ball to Ryan Wingo. What's going on? Fix Arch Manning for me in 60 seconds.
Well, I love Sark saying, he told Arch, he goes, you can't really truly play this position unless you've been booed. Then you get booed, and now it really starts. Right? I think you brought up something very interesting here, and that is that it's not all on Arch Manning. Right now, Texas isn't very good around Arch Manning, and they're certainly not to full power. They have a lot of new faces in the offensive line. The expectation is mile high. Of course, we all understand that, and we all get that. I still think, and I'm taking much more of a 30,000-foot view of this and trying to look at it as a whole and not just focus all the attention on Arch Manning. I still think he's going to be okay. He's going to be fine. They've got to do things around him that I think are better. He certainly has to play better. The biggest thing that he's got to do, in my opinion, watching the other day, no hero ball. If it's there to be made, make it. If it's not, get the ball to your hand and live to play the next down. Understand where you are on the field. All of those things are things that come with experience and maturity and understanding the moment. I don't think he has enough of that yet, and that's got to improve.
Ole Miss wins over Arkansas. They had 8 touchdowns between the two in a very exciting first half. Arkansas goes over 500 yards of offense again with Taylor Green, but with Austin Simmons out, D2 Ferris State transfer Trinidad Chambliss comes in and passes for 353 yards. Man, that Lane Kiffin guy can design a play, can he?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ferris State must have been pretty damn good. Actually, that's a really good program. I broadcasted their national championship game a few years ago against Valdosta State. So, at that level, they're really good. And clearly, Lane identified something there that he thought was a nice fit, That kid, that moment wasn't too big for him, right? He was able to handle the moment. He knows he's got good players around him. I thought he took what the defense gave him for the most part. I to be honest with you, too, I think Arkansas is a pretty decent football team. I think Arkansas's they could cause some problems for some people in a similar fashion that Vanderbilt can cause some problems for some people. So I'm interested to see them grow. But, listen, it's interesting, man. Things are getting so tight. That's 2 weeks in a row now that Ole Miss has climbed out of a hole and figured out a way to win a football game. If you fast forward to 6-7 weeks from now, let's just say they get healthy. These last 2 weeks for Ole Miss are going to help in a big way.
Tricky game at home, out of conference to Tulane this week, 2:30 on ESPN, where the Rebels opened as a 12.5-point favorite. Oklahoma, Missouri, Mississippi State, and Kentucky all had easy SEC wins. MyBookie.ag. MyBookie.ag bringing you Monday Morning Live with ESPN's Tom Luginbill. Promo code next round. Go sign up and make your plays today. MyBookie.ag, including a couple of Monday night football games tonight in the NFL. MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. Around the nation, you've referenced it a couple of times, but Georgia Tech, they beat Clemson. Haynes King, 2 huge third down runs in this game. 25 runs total. So he keeps the ball in his hand like he's a military quarterback, and they get the win, and it's a big win for Brent Key's program. He is now 7-1 versus ranked ACC teams.
I think he's actually 7-1 against ranked AP teams.
Okay, any teams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, any team. So, have you ever seen that meme, Jim, on the internet of Tom Brady when he's sitting on a bench and he's leaning down and he's got his head down, and it basically says, if you see Tom Brady like this, you're about to lose, right? When you watch Haynes King, if he gets up off the pile and he looks like he's torn his Achilles, he's broke his arm, and he snapped his wrist, you're in trouble, because that might be the toughest quarterback playing in college football today. And the heart and soul of that team, that program. But you've got to credit Brent Key for what he's built and how quickly he's done it. At a place where you have academic restrictions, it's not easy to get guys in there. It's not easy to keep them eligible when they're in there. And for them to build what they've built, the true offensive lineman mentality, you hear that phrase that, players take on the personality of their coach. That is the definition of Georgia Tech football right now. And if you look at the rest of their schedule, unless they get injured, unless they fall victim to all the attaboys and pats on the back, they're gonna be a problem. On the flip side, I don't know what is going on with Clemson offensively, Jim. This is a team that looks like the 2023 Clemson offense. Quarterbacks hesitant, undecisive, not anticipating. They seem to not have any identity in the run game, trying to run it with a former wide receiver who's a good player but can't get anything going consistently. All of those wide receivers they talked about, they can't get the ball to them. And it's been the defense can only travel so much for you, but there is something that is off. And dare I say it, I'm not sure Cade Klubnik's as good as everybody says he is.
Yeah. No. And Garrett Riley's got to take some of that heat as well. Of their 9 drives, they just had 3 of them that were 5 or more plays. So they were unable to connect some plays together. Tyler from Spartanburg's on line 1 soon at a radio show coming near you as Clemson loses again. Great win there. A couple of job openings as UCLA and Virginia Tech fire their coaches on Sunday. There'll be more openings. Will it be hard? I mean, we just talked Vandy and Georgia Tech. Clark Lee and Brent Key, both of them are coaching their alma maters at tough jobs, tough academic jobs, but they seem to be so well coached. How hard will it be to lure either one of those guys away from those jobs to bigger jobs?
Oh, very difficult. It's about like the one at Georgia Tech now. I mean, there's top-down alignment that football is going to be the front porch of the university, the institute there. But I think that's what makes the UCLA job such a bad job right now. Go ask Chip Kelly why you walk away from a head coaching job in a Power 5 conference, because they don't want to invest in football to the level that you need to invest to be a championship level contender. They just don't. And as long as they're not going to, then you're going to have a hard time attracting top level guys to that job. Now, the Virginia Tech job, I think, is a job that is a tough job in this particular era. But they still have some of the same challenges that UCLA has, and they don't necessarily have the talent pool right in their backyard that UCLA has. And so, it's 2 jobs that on the surface, if you've been around the game for 25, 30 years or more, you would look at those jobs and you'd say, man, those are pretty good jobs. And you have to sit back and say, are they?
Yeah.
They? And so, and listen, obviously, somebody's going to take a job. Somebody thinks that they can do it and they might be able to do it. But whoever's in line for potentially some of those jobs, you better get the questions answered as it relates to top-down alignment in today's era and get it in writing.
MyBookie.ag brings you Monday Morning Live. Promo code next round. Bet back bonuses there up to $500 on your first bet, fully covered. Then you load back up if you lose that first bet up to $500, and then you have fun. Promo code next round, MyBookie.ag. Final thought here. My favorite game of the weekend, Rich Rod, 18 years later, goes back and takes an undermanned West Virginia team after losing to Ohio out of the MAC on the road and beats rival Pitt 31-24. And Pitt just had 46 rushing yards. West Virginia did it with muscle and grit and fought for that win. Rich Rod in tears. Take me home, Lugs. What a great moment that was.
Well, remember, he's in tears because his last game, was to go to the national championship, and who did they lose to?
Pitt
in the backyard brawl. So obviously there's an emotional component there for him. And you're right, they were likely outmanned, but outplayed Pitt. I mean, Pitt's up by 10 points with 7 minutes to go in the game. Pitt found ways to lose that game, and West Virginia capitalized on it when they did. And credit West Virginia for responding. But Pitt should not have lost that football game. I was sitting there watching it going, how is this happening? And so, hey, it is what it is. It was a great game. I thought all of the games that were meant to be great this weekend, Jim, were great.
Yep.
I mean, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Pitt, West Virginia. There were some matchups that were as advertised. I know I'm missing some. Arkansas, Ole Miss.
Yep.
Another one.
Yep, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, but South Florida, Miami didn't pan out as Miami and Carson Beck looked good, 49-12. Yeah. They beat the upstart Bulls, who are still in the mix for that group of 5 happening this year. All right, that's Tom Luginbill. That's Monday Morning Live. We'll do it again next Monday. Next Monday, we'll react to Auburn, Oklahoma, the big one in Norman, and get you ready for Alabama and Georgia, the big one in Athens. Luke's, have a great week, man. Thursday night, you're off to a home game for you virtually, right? Rice and Charlotte.
Only one flight in hotel in rental car this week instead of doing it twice to get a home game. Hey, by the way, if you haven't, I tell people, and those who watch Thursday, they're going to watch it because it's college football. So Rice has a new head coach by the name of Scott Abel.
Yep.
If you want to see a master class in gun formation, triple option offense, tune in Thursday night.
Yep.
This guy's offense will make your head spin.
I really had him
It's
as
gonna be
an upset pick earlier this year against Houston. It didn't pan out in that game, but I like where he's taking that Rice program.
Yeah, once he flips the roster, the scheme itself is so dynamic that he's gonna cause headaches for people.
Rice and Charlotte Thursday night on ESPN, kicking off week 4 of college football. Lugs, have a good one. The next round starts in 10 minutes on these same digital channels. See you, folks.